Globalist empire collapses, Pope dead, Schwab bails, Trump's tariff takedown, and Dems are tanking defending criminals. Well, I hope you had a wonderful Easter to start things off. Right now at the White House, there's the Easter egg roll. We'll have more on that coming up. It's nice to see Donald Trump coloring with kids and Melania Trump reading to children. Again, we'll have more of that coming up. But we're discussing two globalist figures that are now essentially out of the picture. Trump calling out Fed Chairman Jerome Powell again. And Allison's going to be joining me to discuss even more Democrat efforts to bring a non-American citizen back to the U.S. All that and so much more for Lindell TV's White House Live every day. We have hours of live coverage from the Capitol. But again, perhaps the biggest news of the day is that Pope Francis is now dead, passing away just a day after one of the holiest Christian holidays, the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Pope Francis had been ill following a health crisis earlier in the year and was suffering from pneumonia. He seemed to be doing better, but now he has passed. President Donald J. Trump has ordered flags be flown at half-staff in memory of His Holiness Pope Francis. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance also expressed his condolences. The announcement of Pope Francis's death is also on the heels of Vice President's visit with him on Easter Sunday. So, of course, the left is trying to blame J.D. Vance, despite the Pope honoring the Vice President and showering him with gifts. They just think that by very virtue of J.D. Vance visiting with the Pope, you have leftists tweeting out things like, "You killed him, thanks for killing the Pope," all of that wild stuff you would expect from the leftists. Now, many Catholics are divided on how they felt about Pope Francis. As PJ Media notes, his papacy often sparked controversy. Now, as a Christian, the biggest shock for me came when the Pope had this to say in September of 2024, "Since God is God for all, then we are all children of God. If you start to fight, my religion is more important than yours, mine is true and yours isn't, where will that lead us? There's only one God, and each of us has a language to arrive at God. Some are Sikh, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, and they are different paths to God." Interesting thing to hear from the leader of the Catholic Church to say, because it is in direct contradiction to what Jesus said in the Word of God. "I am the way." Jesus, I am the way and the truth and the life. "No one comes to the Father but by me." That's from John 14:6. Now, the Vatican leader explained that what he said about all paths lead to God, the Pope rather, that was his own personal opinion and not the church's position. Well, if you are a believer, if you believe in the Word of God, then opinions don't really mean anything because we believe in an absolute truth. There is the truth. There is the Word. And so that's a big hang up for some of us. Now, Francis also seemed to be far left on political issues. He was against securing America's border. He endorsed homosexual unions, and he affirmed LGBTQ children, which don't exist, by the way, but affirmed that and their causes. Roger Stone believes the next pope will also be political. And so here's the crossroads. Will the Roman Catholic Church continue in the way of a Pope Francis, leftist, globalist type figure, or will it return to a more traditional leader? Here's what Roger Stone had to say.
To the extent that there are conservative votes, remember, the current Pope appointed 80% of the electorate in this particular election. And then, of course, there's Cardinal Mario Grish of Malta. He is the Secretary General of the Synod of Bishops. He's a Francis appointee with an extremely progressive bent, emphasizing dialogue with marginalized groups. So if I had my pick, I would take Cardinal Robert Serra of Guinea. He'd be my first choice. He's a staunch conservative, a defender of the faith in the church, believes in borders, believes in the rules of the West. We really couldn't do better than Cardinal Robert Serra of Guinea.
So we shall see what happens with that. But another globalist, as long as we're on this theme, is also out. Davos meeting founder Klaus Schwab stepping down as World Economic Forum chair, according to Reuters. And in another weird coincidence of how these align, this announcement comes as Klaus is in his 88th year, the same age Pope Francis just died. So tell me what that means, folks, when it comes to numerology or whatever. Now, is his resignation a sign that exposure of the globalist elites manipulating things, is that that it's causing a crumble, that he would step down. Even Schwab acknowledged the pushback. This is a flashback speech from Klaus Schwab. Watch.
We face the backlash of millions of people, particularly in the West, who feel that globalization is not working at their advantage. And for this reason, what we have seen in the elections in the United States, in the Brexit vote, this anger of people against globalization and against the elites, which they feel have profited from globalization. We know we are in a very emotionalized way, so there's an emotional turmoil in the world. People in some parts of the world are angry. Facts do not anymore count. Fake news may become more important than realities.
Isn't it interesting that everything's relative? All paths can lead to God. Everything, there's no such thing as truth, except when they want to define the truth. They're saying fake news might become a thing. Facts won't matter. These are the people that literally advocate that there's no such thing as truth. So interesting, unless they decide it's the truth, right? So we got to keep a close eye on this, what this means with him stepping down. Is it the first step in finally being able to have succeeded in pushing back against globalism? We shall see. Now, as far as bringing it back home to our nation, we've been keeping an eye on the economy. Let's look at what the market is doing today. Yes, it is painful, but we must keep an eye on things. It is the Dow falling more than 1,000 points, you can see there, as well as the S&P down. This is a roller coaster ride, and it does align with anything that's happening as far as Trump announcements, major moves there. Many believe that these market moves are in response to remarks that he made against Chairman Powell again. But interestingly enough, gold, we also watched gold that hit over 3,400 an ounce. As President Trump threatened independence from the Fed. So usually they are non-correlated. The gold is moving opposite from what the market is doing. And that's why it's a great hedge against inflation, a great hedge against the market, precious metals as a tangible asset. And so as you can see, there's still plenty of upward potential for gold. And the best way to get into gold is to go to MikeLindellGold.com. That's MikeLindellGold.com. All kinds of wins here. You get some specials by going there. If you qualify, might even qualify for some free silver, and you can find out what else you may be eligible for. And it also helps support this network. So helps support the effort to bring you the truth, because we acknowledge that there is an actual truth. So it helps support the show too, as long as you are investing in gold there. And another investment outside of the market is a play on energy. You can invest in oil with Oxford Club. You can go to ChristieOilBoom.com, ChristieOilBoom.com, and find out how you can invest with the #1 oil and gas royalty. Just a quick video you can watch to get more information there. All right, Trump is continuing to push rate cuts, and this be why we're seeing such a sharp turn in the market. He says preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many, with energy costs way down, food prices, including Biden's egg disaster, substantially lower, and most other things trending down. There's virtually no inflation. With these costs trending so nicely downward, just what I predicted they would do, there can almost be no inflation, but there can be a slowing of the economy unless Mr. Too Late, a major loser, lowers interest rates. Now, Europe has already lowered 7 times. Powell has always been too late, except when it comes to the election period, when he lowered in order to help sleepy Joe Biden, later Kamala, get elected. How did that work out? How did that work out? All right, so as Trump continues with his tariff agenda and independence from the Fed, globalism continues to crater, and along with it, the Democratic Party, which has become a party of globalists and elites. The Dems have chosen their latest hill to die on, and that is advocating for criminals. They just keep it up. Allison Steinberg has joined me to discuss from DC. So Allison, welcome in. Looks like a decent day there after Easter. No rain you're dealing with yet?
Not yet. It is a little bit overcast, but it's not too cold, so I'm happy with that. It's a a nice day to celebrate Easter here at the White House, as you touched on in your opening statement. The White House egg roll is taking place today, so lots of exciting activities happening here at the White House. It was really nice to see President Trump honoring our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, which comes as a very stark contrast to Joe Biden just last year around this time, who took the Easter celebration to announce the Trans Visibility Month that was set to ensue following that. So yes, it's a nice change of pace here at the White House today.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't family friendly when you had a trans individual flashing with the fake chest area, and I'm putting that delicately. But I mean, it just as you were talking and thinking of those pictures we're seeing coming out now of what's happening at the White House, Donald Trump coloring with kids, this is what it's about. It's about our future. It's about our kids. And so it is mind-boggling that the Democrat Party, they want a future that includes gang members and illegals, the efforts to bring them back into our country. And Chris Van Hollen, the Maryland senator who's been mostly vocal about bringing the particular alleged MS-13 gang member back, this is how he spent his Easter, is going on talk shows and advocating for the return of this man. So let's watch the first clip in this series, and we'll discuss on the other side.
I'm not sure why Abrego Garcia's rights should be denied based on an awful murder that he had absolutely nothing to do with.
Now, of course, he was talking about the murder of Patty Morin's daughter. You covered this extensively when you were in that room of other angel moms that have fallen victim to people that should never have been here in the first place, taking the life of their loved one. And he sees no correlation. He doesn't understand why he's getting heat for not saying anything about Patty Morin. So what are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think it's disgusting. It's so sad. As you mentioned, I got to sit in at that DHS hearing with Secretary Noem, the angel families who were in attendance and told their stories of their loved ones who have been killed or violently injured due to these illegal aliens who should never be in the country in the first place. We heard from Rachel Morin's mother here at the White House just a number of days ago telling her daughter's story. So, yes, this is a common occurrence here. Unfortunately, there's so many other stories that we don't often hear because there are so many of them. These are just a few that are out in the media. And then we have Democrat senators like Chris Van Hollen out advocating for these people, trying to bring this alleged MS-13 gang member back into the country when President Trump and President Bukele have both made it clear that he is staying in El Salvador. Now, he went this past week to go visit him there. And I think it's just, a giant charade, a giant stunt to try to cling on to whatever these people can they have left. I mean, they just make these insane criminals their heroes, the Democrats do. I mean, we've seen this with George Floyd. We've seen this with Luigi, whatever his name is. These people are no good. That guy, yeah. I don't even know his stupid last name, but they're criminals. I mean, they advocate and rally on behalf of criminals. Why isn't the same effort put forth towards actual American citizens, as you and I discussed on one of your shows last week? Why wasn't the same effort put forth for the January 6ers who were unfairly thrown into a gulag for being present at the Capitol? So, there's just zero consistency here, and it really shows what the Democrats' true priorities are. I think it's disgusting.
Yeah, in that clip, he says one has nothing to do with the other because he's focused on this due process. But again, if there was consistency, then they would have advocated for January 6ers who did not get that due process and who are, in fact, American citizens. But another sticking point there is this MS-13 affiliation. Now, he was asked about this, Senator Van Hollen, what are your thoughts on his affiliation with MS-13? The mainstream media continues to say that there's no evidence for this whatsoever. And so let's see what he has to say.
Now, President Trump says that some of Abrego Garcia's tattoos signify that he's a member of MS-13. In 2019, Police alleged a confidential informant claimed that Abrego Garcia was an active MS-13 member. His wife and his attorney deny that, of course. Can you say with absolute certainty that he is not, nor has he ever been a member of the MS-13 gang? And did you ask him point blank?
Well, Dana, what Donald Trump is trying to do here is change the subject. The subject at hand is that he and his administration are defying a court order to give Abrego Garcia his due process rights. They are trying to litigate on social.
So did you notice what happened there is Dana, again, I don't know why it's not Dana, it's apparently Dana. Dana, she asked him, are you willing to say that he's not an MS-13 member? And he's like, well, what they're doing is trying to change the subject. So he changes the subject when asked a direct question and accuses the Trump administration of changing the subject. But what's wild to me is that, again, the narrative is all across the board. They're all saying that there's no evidence. Even as, we see on Rapid Response, we see from the White House, documents, court hearings, the tattoos, what he wore at confidential. I mean, how many pieces of evidence do you need to where we can call it evidence? I mean, they constantly conflating the words evidence and proof. So maybe there's not proof that he was MS-13, but there's certainly evidence. What are your thoughts on that?
There's absolutely evidence. This is actually awfully reminiscent to me of, the deadly COVID shots. You have people that are dropping dead right after getting these shots, 1, 2, 3 boosters. They're suffering from severe heart problems, unknown cancers we've never seen. The evidence is front and center here, yet they just ignore the facts because they would rather push their own narrative. That's exactly what's happening here. They're ignoring the facts to further their own ridiculous narrative, and they just won't answer the question, which is very simple. Many of these MS-13 gang members get tattoos to show off the crimes that they have committed. This is like a badge of honor with them. It's very common. You go into any prison and you'll see the gang members with corresponding tattoos to whatever crime it is that they committed. So they collect these, they wear them proudly, and it's no surprise here that he does indeed have them. And the fact that Senator Van Hollen continues to just ignore the question point blank, I think, it's very telling.
And purposely change the subject. And let's not also forget about the element of human trafficking. He was pulled over, and they were going to follow up on a potential human trafficking investigation. Apparently, he had 8 people in his car, but we've come to learn that the FBI at that time basically did not pursue that, and it was the FBI under Biden administration. So, shocker. Now, Caroline Leavitt is also responding to Chris Van Hollen taking up his Easter to defend an alleged gang member and wife beater. Here's what she had to say.
He is an illegal alien, a foreign terrorist, and a criminal MS-13 gang member who violated our country's laws by coming here in the first place. And shame on Senator Chris Van Hollen and the entire Democrat Party, who wasted Easter Sunday going on every television show in the country to advocate for the return of an illegal criminal gang member. There is a litany of evidence proving this individual's ties to MS-13 that has been confirmed in 2 different courts. There have been multiple law enforcement officers who have affirmed his MS-13 gang affiliation, and this is who the Democrat Party is advocating for. It is ridiculous. The president, this White House, the entire administration will continue to focus on deporting these illegal alien gang members and criminals from our nation's interior and enforcing our country's immigration laws. That's what the president was reelected to do. And I would add that the overwhelming majority of Americans continue to support the deportation of illegal criminals. A recent CBS poll showed that 89% of the American people support deporting illegal criminals from our homeland. So the president will continue to do that while Democrats continue to trip over themselves while ignoring American citizens whose lives have been forever impacted by the actions and the crimes of these illegal criminals, like Patty Morin, who we were so honored to have at the White House to share her daughter's story.
And we covered that already, but the Dems are trying to brush away, sweep away all of these connections to MS-13, the reports of protective order against him by his wife. They're trying to shoo these off as minutia because this is about his due process. But I like how that there's that nugget in there from Caroline Leavitt about, like, what about the process that was ignored in bringing him here? And that's what's so disappointing about what we see happening with the courts, is because it didn't matter that there was processes ignored in bringing all of these illegals here in the country, but now they're fighting tooth and nail to have every illegal have a court hearing of their own. So that's significant as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's ultimately what this boils down to. And Caroline Leavitt makes a point to mention that every time she speaks on the illegal aliens who have infiltrated into our country, because the sole fact that they are here makes them illegal. They should never have been here in the first place. What Biden did is absolutely criminal. I think he needs to be arrested, quite frankly. I'm still waiting for that to happen. But, she put it perfectly. The fact that these people are even here and that these Democrats are fighting on behalf of them to get, their due process and go through the courts, in a way that's truthful and lawful. It's just despicable. None of this should even be happening in the first place. They shouldn't be here. And it's just that simple. They need to be deported. This is what America voted for. Millions of Americans turned out for President Trump, and they support this, and this is what he campaigned on. So we want to see him deliver on his promises, and I think that he is doing just that.
It is a real head scratcher, and instead of backing off of this, they're going even further in. Western Lensman is reporting that 4 more Democrats set to land in El Salvador to fight for the release of their new party icon, Abrigo Garcia, and we'll name them here: Rep. Maxine Dexter, Rep. Robert Garcia of California, Rep. Yasamin Ansari, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, from Arizona, and Rep. Maxwell Alejandro Frost from Florida. Well, that's disappointing. And so he says they want PR. The more they get, the better. But I think that this, you and I as journalists, we always want to look at like conflicts of interest. We want to look at motivations. And so I think that there is truth to that. We need to look deeper and deeper into their motivations for this particular individual. There are some wild conspiracy theories being thrown around that I'm not ready to report on yet. But there's nothing wrong with trying to search for the motivations for what is going on with this particular individual, especially because of what I said before about, there were efforts to go after him with human trafficking, and that was just dropped by Biden's FBI. So what are they hiding? Are you seeing any of those things moving around?
Well, I certainly have speculations of my own, and, I'm not afraid to be called a conspiracy theorist, for lack of a better term, because it usually turns out that we are correct in circumstances like this. But I have to say, I am surprised to see these Democrats moving forward to go rally for him in El Salvador. This was announced last week. I reported on it. I thought that maybe perhaps when Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt brought Patty Morin into the briefing room, that they would reconsider this decision, and after the laughable performance by Senator Van Hollen, they would, cancel. But it looks like they're moving forward full steam ahead. So it's certainly an interesting choice, a very bold move indeed. And yes, it certainly does make you wonder, what is the real motive here? What's the real story? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Chrissy Lee, whenever you're ready to unveil them. I can't wait to hear some of your conspiracies.
Yeah, maybe
because I'm
we'll
sure
save that for tomorrow. It'll be a tease for tomorrow. I'm going to look a little bit deeper into this because I just kind of heard in passing and I was like, whoa, that's interesting theory. So we'll just do a tease for tomorrow if I can uncover anything else. Now, as far as Christine Noem, she's pinpointing this, and rightfully so. They're showing who the Democrat Party is aligning with. And so let's watch some of these folks that have been rallied up and taken for deportation. And these are who the Dems are all in on. So let's watch.
An illegal alien from Guatemala charged with raping a child in Massachusetts. An MS-13 gang member from El Salvador accused of murdering a Texas man. A Venezuelan charged with filming and selling child pornography in Michigan. These are just some of the heinous migrant criminals caught because of President Donald J. Trump's leadership. I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Under President Trump, attempted illegal border crossings are at the lowest levels ever recorded, and over 100,000 illegal aliens have been arrested. If you are here illegally, you're next. You will be fined nearly $1,000 a day, imprisoned, and deported. You will never return. But if you register using our CBP Home app and leave now, you could be allowed to return legally. Do what's right. Leave now. Under President Trump, America's laws, border, and families will be protected.
So good. And we see that time and time again, this theme of so many of these people that they're rounding up. I mean, crimes against children it's the lowest of the low. And it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for the Democratic Party for continuing to go headstrong in keeping these people here. And there's a couple things there. You know, it shows that we have stopped we've turned off the faucet, but there's still much dirty water in the sink, if you will. You know, I love that they're using the app to offer people to self-deport, because it costs a lot of resources to round these people up, and obviously there's lawfare going on. And so if there's an easier way to approach this problem, then that might be the solution, right?
Absolutely. I think the encouragement of the self-deporting is critical. I'm glad to see them doing it, as we've covered on the network many times now. They're also doing the financial incentive, or not incentive, but they will fine these illegals up to almost $1,000 a day if they don't self-deport. They're all being told that they need to turn themselves in now. So if these people ever want a chance at coming back into America the correct way, it is certainly in their best interest to follow these orders at this point in time. Otherwise, I don't think the outlook is going to be so good for them. But I also wanted to mention too, Chrissy, we have some breaking news pertaining to Kristi Noem. She looks like she had her bag stolen from a man in Washington, D.C. at a restaurant she was at. It had a bunch of her personal belongings, her DHS access badge, her keys to her home, passport, etc. So it just goes to show when President Trump and his administration really put the pressure on and hold these people's feet to the fire, as they should be. Look at the unfortunate consequences. Now she's getting her bag stolen. Who knows if this is some illegal alien or someone who just doesn't like, her agenda. But it's concerning nonetheless, and very scary to know that criminals like this are still running rampant in our country, primarily thanks to Joe Biden. So there's that.
What's even scarier is sitting here thinking like, okay, this is another thing that doesn't make sense. Like people like her and others in the administration have enormous amount of security and eyes on them. So how this could even happen is very disconcerting and makes you wonder how many more people that shouldn't be in those positions of security, how many sleepers that we have, because that to me is just shocking that somebody with that degree of security and eyes on them would be able to have their bag taken. It's very, very strange. But just want to try and squeeze in this other part of the topic that we've been focusing on the illegals and how Dems are aligning with them. But really the overall theme is how Democrats are aligning with violence, as long as it's their approved violence in general. From Legal Insurrection, it reports that Tim Walz is now strangely silent after a Minnesota government employee, apparently reportedly one that worked for him in some degree, accused of vandalizing Teslas to the tune of $20,000. He is one of many Democrats who've taken to their Musk derangement and mocked Tesla stock prices, even though that state has Tesla in its basket of investments, and has accused Musk as being part of America being stolen by fascists and Nazis. But again, perhaps with his boss's words, Tim Walz's own words against Elon Musk, et cetera, maybe incentivize this Minnesota Department of Human Services employee to go on a spree of vandalizing Teslas to the tune of $20,000. He's caught on video doing that, and we haven't heard from Tim Walz on that issue.
Classic. They're always silent when they should be speaking up, unfortunately. But I can't say I'm too surprised here. I mean, Tim Walz is very actively anti-Elon Musk, as you just pointed out. He said he, comedically tried to claim he gets joy out of, if he needs to laugh, he gets joy out of watching Tesla stock prices drop. So yeah, I wouldn't, hesitate to say that he, in a way, does condone this violence that we see from the left. I mean, this is a serious problem. It's been ongoing for many months. These violent, radical leftist progressives vandalizing Tesla dealerships, vandalizing Tesla cars, and no word from people like Tim Walz on this. Where are they when this is all actively happening? They're not told to stop. They're more so encouraged by the commentary and rhetoric that the Democrats push. So, this is deeply disturbing. I think he needs to come out and speak on behalf of this person that he's affiliated with and, correct the record here. It's disgusting what they allow and condone, and it shouldn't be tolerated.
And as we wrap up this discussion, I just heard the stat that more than 50% of those responsible for Tesla violence are part of this trans community. So we constantly hear about how, trans, have to suffer threat of violence. But it always seems to be that it is the trans cult members that are participating in violence, and we saw more of that from this tolerant crowd when it came to their protest against the ruling recently that only biological women should be considered women. So from the Telegraph, it shows that the Nelson Mandela statue is among 7 vandalized during the trans protest, as well as sculptures of Sir Robert Peel, Benjamin Disraeli, and Millicent Fawcett also defaced, and it happened as thousands of people marched through central London in an emergency demonstration against the ruling on Wednesday that only biological women are in fact women. So just more peace and love and tolerance from the trans community, from the left. It's just, we could be here all day with all of these examples. But Allison, I know you're going to be on top of, what's going on at the White House, hopefully happier stories there as far as the Easter role occurring. And what else are you working on today?
We are also covering whatever comes out of the White House for the rest of the day, as well as updates surrounding Jerome Powell and the Fed. Interesting stuff there. It seems as though Trump is looking to replace him, so that could be really good news depending what happens there. And we will also be talking about the latest with Letitia James on Vanessa's show. So lots of good stuff to come, so stay tuned to Lindell TV.
Yes. Thank you so much, Allison, and thank all of you for tuning in the day after Easter. Again, I hope everyone had a wonderful Easter. Stay tuned for more coverage from Allison, as well as any news that comes out of the passing of the Pope just today after Easter. We'll be on top of all of that. But thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me, Allison, with that breaking news on Kristi Noem. I'm sure you'll be following that as well. And stick around for more coverage throughout the day.